Alright gang, so today we are taking a look at the new Tellaro from Angus Trim and Valiant Armoury. This is the latest in the Vision line of swords. So these swords are actually manufactured by Valiant Armoury with help from Angus Trim to try and maintain that famous A-trim performance characteristics like the handling and the cutting capacity, distal taper, profile taper, that sort of stuff. And then basically like he got together with the guys at Valiant and they put together this new Vision line, just adding like these gorgeous fittings and hilts and like customization options, the scabbard, like basically just like taking these from the modern martial arts training tools that Gus produces and turning them into heirloom quality swords that you can be, proud to pass on. Hopefully not for a while though. And of course, a bang up job on this. I have reviewed a couple of the Vision line swords before. In fact, there are two of them living on my wall right now. So yeah, I quite like them. But yeah, let's get into it a little bit. So we'll go ahead. We'll start with some of the numbers. Okay, so the Tellaro comes in at 41 inches overall length. The blade, it makes up 30 and a half inches of that. As far as weight goes, it comes in at 2 pounds 11 ounces, or 1,224 grams if you want to use that kind of measurement. But to kick us off, I'm going to start with the scabbard. So this is Zach Suttles at Valiant Armoury does these scabbards as well as custom scabbards for other swords. I just made a very lovely scabbard for an Albion recently, but he really does excellent work, and I feel like on the Tellaro here, at least this one, he has really brought that up a notch. And I think it was Shelly over at Valiant actually did like the painting of this. But one thing that really sets this apart is all of like the detailing and the tooling on the scabbard, and that is something that I haven't seen on the other Vision line swords as of yet. As far as like the detailing goes, like even in here on this, like that is detailed and tooled, and I just think that would like really brings this up another notch from even the already beautiful work that he puts out. Another thing to know is that they can customize the scabbards. So this one is just a wood lining, but you can get a felt lining if you want. You can request custom colors and all that kind of stuff. So get in touch with the guys at Valiant. They're very good about kind of listening to the customers and making nice swords. But as far as production stuff goes, this is a pretty top-notch scabbard. The shape on this one is actually blued. The other shapes on previous Vision line swords that I have reviewed have just been stainless steel, but this one is actually blued stainless, so it actually matches the hilt fittings quite nicely. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at this hilt actually. So we're working with a wheel pommel. It has a very nicely defined like center line here that just kind of gives it like a really cool look. It makes it makes for a very graceful appearance. One of the things I did quite like about this wheel pommel is that it actually slims out towards the end, so it's a little bit thicker here and then gets slimmer. And I just think it has like a really nice like elegant shaping to it. Now one thing that people are sometimes concerned about is comfort with the wheel pommels, but I think the way that they have like engineered this so that it like slants as it gets closer to the edge instead of it being like a big disc. I didn't really find that it like interfered with my wrist at all when I was actually swinging the sword around, so I really appreciated that. And also the edges on this are very slightly chamfered, so it's very comfortable to hold on to. Like when it does brush up against your hand, it doesn't bite or anything like that. The peen on this pommel, if I can get it to focus, is very nicely done, very clean, which is pretty typical of the other Vision line swords. They're just really cleanly done. As far as the hilt itself goes, it is a waisted hexagonal grip. It is a little bit wider than some of the other Vision line swords. That's one thing to kind of keep in mind if you depending on like your hand size or whatever. I did find that just due to the width of this and it being a little squared on this side, that at first I was a little concerned about how well I was going to be able to index it, considering that it's a little bit wider than what I'm used to. But I found that it actually indexed very well, and particularly getting into some of the thumb grip stuff with like the German style here, these kinds of cuts, I found that I was able to index that very well. Now I will say that I did at first, when I first like pulled it out and was kind of getting acquainted with this weapon, I was worried that this was going to be a little uncomfortable. I don't know, maybe I got soft little dainty hands, but I was a little worried it was going to be uncomfortable. But once I like really got to swinging it around and got to like know the weapon, I didn't find that to be the case. But yeah, so lovely dark chocolate covered cord wrapped leather grip. The seam is, as with the other Vision swords, very smooth. Like I can't really feel it at all. It's you know, like it's there. You can see it, of course, but like you're not gonna get like a hot spot from it or anything like that. And I did get out and swing this thing around quite prodigiously this weekend, which I'm excited to talk about here shortly. Moving on up, taking a look at the crossguard. So we have a very nice kind of upswept shaping here with these 3 defined like central ridges where it's kind of, we'll see if we can get that here, where you can see it kind of scallops to make those ridges. One more subtle detail I've noticed on the cross is that you can see it's actually wider down here, and then it kind of also scallops as it comes out to terminate here. I just thought that was like a really nice, like subtle detail. You know, it's not super obvious, but like once I noticed it, I was just kind of pleased with that. You know, it was just, you know, a nice subtle touch, and it really tells you kind of how much care they put into designing these weapons. One thing I noticed on the cross that I want to bring up is I had mentioned in my Ansbach review about how the cross had like a little bit of bite, just because like this line on it was like so sharply defined, which of course looks great. But I would just notice that like when I would go to grab the sword sometimes, that it would have like just a little bit of like edge to it. Not enough to like hurt you, but it was just like, you know, not the most pleasant. However, I noticed that on the Tellaro, they have actually slightly chamfered this, and I mean very slightly. So you're still getting a nice defined line that looks gorgeous, as you can see, but it's not uncomfortable at all when I do brush up against that. You know, I don't notice it, and I don't know if they did that because of my feedback or not, but regardless, I approve as a user of the sword. Now, my favorite thing about this sword is this. Look at this blade. This blade is just under 3 inches wide at the base. I believe this is roughly akin to a Type 18B. It feels a little bit wide for an 18B to me, but I'm not sure if that like really matters as far as like the typology goes. I'm not like a typology expert by any means. But yeah, like so it does have like that defined like central ridge. You can see it there. It's very straight. I mean, I should say that the blade, of course, is straight. Like I hesitate to even like bring it up because it seems like it should be a given that like my nice sword should have a straight blade, but like the edge doesn't waver or do anything like weird. The central ridge is right up the center, except for maybe a little bit at the end. There's like the very slightest little bit of waver when it's starting to come to the point. And speaking of the point, it is a very nicely acute point that is very well formed and flows nicely with the rest of the blade profile, as you can see here. And you'll see that it actually carries that width relatively far out. Not the same width, obviously, it's profile tapered, but getting out to about 19 inches, which is about right here at the center of percussion. It's still a nice wide blade. It's about 1 3/4 inches off the top of my head at the center of percussion. So the center of percussion is, we talked about this before, is the ideal place where I want to have my strike actually land on my target, because it's going to have less vibration go into the sword and more of my energy is going to go into the target, so it makes for a more effective cut. And having this nice wide bevel at that point essentially lets the sword, when it starts to bite, one, it doesn't have to force that material apart so dramatically, so it gets a better bite to start with, and two, as it starts to bite, it kind of stabilizes and stabilizes until it passes through the material. So these wide blade swords tend to be very good at cutting. Now, another thing that is worth mentioning is that this blade is slightly shorter than the other Vision line swords that I've reviewed. The overall length is about 4 inches shorter than those, so that too also kind of helps with making sure to deliver as much energy into that target, because the shorter blade doesn't have as much flex when it actually hits stuff. So even if you do flub the cut a little bit, you're more likely to get a better bite and to hopefully reach that point of stabilization where you can go right through the target. And oh boy, does this thing go right through targets, which I want to talk about in a second. I did want to mention too, the point of balance on this is comes out to about 4 inches, which is actually makes for, despite the kind of imposing broad appearance, it actually like is a really lively sword. I was kind of surprised just comparing visually with the Tauber to find that this actually is a little bit more lively than the Tauber. Like you can really like move this around like very, very effectively, you know, almost like a one-handed sword. So, you know, I just thought that was like really, really interesting, you know, as a visual contrast. So, final thoughts on the Tellaro. It is obviously a very lovely sword, and especially with the scabbard, it's just a gorgeous package. So, you know, like, of course, you know, they knocked it out of the park in that regard. And I hope that you see when I have the cutting footage in this video, and I'm talking about like the way that the blade performs in the cut, that you can see how much fun I had cutting with this thing, because man, I had a blast, and I can really see this thing becoming a favorite competition cutter for some folks. And maybe when I manage to pick up one myself, maybe it'll be a favorite competition cutter for me. We'll see. Oh my god, that was ridiculous. Super clean. So it's a little messier that time, so I need to work that left overhow. So smooth. Not too bad. Good stuff. Did you guys see how those cut pieces just like stayed there and hung out for a second? That's the good stuff. Ready? Yes. Ooh. Nice. That's awesome. Ah. I'm not perfect. Just damn good. Huh. Alright gang, so as you have probably seen already, the Tellaro is pretty much a monster cutter. This is going to be my last mat. It's actually my first time ever cutting a double rolled mat, so should be interesting. Based on the performance so far, I think this thing is going to chew right through this mat. But here we go. Time. There we go. Perfect. One more on this side. It's my last mat, guys. Cheers. But yeah, beautiful sword, great performance. As far as, you know, once again, things to be aware of, it's just that flatter, wider hilt shape. Some people might have an issue with that. So if you can, you know, get your hands on one of these to try it out before you commit, then that might be good. But I don't think that many people are going to have any kind of issue with that. And, you know, I really feel like that's just, you know, just kind of, that's looking for something for me to criticize, basically. But yeah, beautiful sword. As far as where you can get it from Cult of Athena has them. I think you can get them direct from Valiant. And the other Vision line swords were at Age of Chivalry, so they may have some as well. They retail for $1,795, and that includes the scabbard. Quite a lovely scabbard. As you know, scabbards are also quite expensive. So, you know, like, all in all, value for money, I feel like it's there. Once again, this is an heirloom quality piece. You can proudly put it up on your wall. Like, this is a sword that you may have for decades, you know, and be able to have something that's like really worthwhile to show off and be you know, a highlight of your collection. So there you go. Cheers.